Wow, did Castlevania Nocturne piss us off? A new royal one.
Oh. Oh boy.
There'll be their defenders. There'll always be defenders, but of all fairness, I'm not gonna call it Castlevania Nocturne. I mean, I call it Castlevania Nocturne in passing, but Twilightvania, which I made a meme of, sounds much better. So I'm gonna call it Twilightvania for the rest of this video. And Twilightvania Nocturne. And that actually does has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, as you pointed out
And
to me in a previous conversation, like, why call it Castlevania if there's no castle?
yeah, and there's no Dracula either. There's no Dracula's castle. Like, yeah, and also apparently vampires can be in the day now. Even though I've definitely seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, apparently they can be in the day. Apparently they can, but they're weaker in the day, and they don't have their fangs out. So I've seen and they don't sparkle. That's for sure. They don't sparkle.
Well, given that they're going this far, they might as well sparkle. They're
Yeah.
pretty much
Oh
Twilight
wait,
vampires.
Alucard already sparkles, doesn't he? Uh,
There's probably
now,
gonna be some
and
magic spell that like makes them sparkle or something like that.
One Piece, the one thing that we didn't expect to be good, and it blew us, it ripped us a new one, and actually went the distance like Rocky Balboa or Hercules, and actually provided a pretty, in 2023, and I quote, girls can be boys, but no woman can beat a man. In 2023. On Netflix. By the same people who made Cowboy Bebop. By the same studio that made Castlevania Nocturne. In 2023 again. All localized entirely in their kitchen. Yes. See it? Yes.
There is hope for Netflix yet. Note to self: if you're ever making an adaptation, please get the original creator on board. I think if the Super Mario Brothers
He put a
movie
gun
did
to
do
their
it,
head. Put a gun to their head. He put a gun to
yeah,
their
Oda
heads.
pretty much just put guns to their head saying, like,
You know,
"Don't screw
it's
this up."
funny that we expected to love Castlevania Nocturne and we hate it, and I expected at first that it like I actually honestly when I first saw like the one like the production value like with those little like Netflix preview like the shot like you usually go in a Netflix menu. I saw the production value in that fish guy who's like this universe's Davy Jones.
Oh, yeah,
That I thought I knew that there was potential, actual good potential when I saw his Arlong like design, his
all right, all
production
right.
value. And I was expecting it going hating it like everyone else, and boy was I surprised is an understatement. Damn.
At this point, I think the bar is just set so low for a lot of mainstream entertainment that anything that is either decent or in this case really good is just hailed as masterpieces.
I mean, but it's definitely as other YouTubers said, it's a step in the right direction. But he hasn't seen like the One Piece anime. I have. This is his first time into One Piece, and he loved it.
Yeah.
I saw the anime, and I actually loved it, and I rewatched like that special episode from 20th anniversary, and it's definitely inferior. It's to the anime, even though not at the same time not because of course that American writing and compared to of course something that came in the 90s and something as because actually comparing the live action to the anime it feels more like a seinen a bit compared to the anime. It's definitely shown in like fun, adventure, yay. But definitely, as Shrek said, that One Piece, not Netflix has layers to it. Layers. And more layers. Which when I rewatched One Piece, the Netflix anime, I didn't get I'm not the not the Netflix on Netflix. The original anime I didn't get that much. Not that much layers. It's definitely lighter. It's definitely lighter. Even though from a story structure standpoint, like some things in anime that they did better than in live action adaptation. Yes, they definitely have done that.
Yeah, you've seen the anime, and me and many other people are just going into it, just watching the live action show. Like, how does the One Piece live action show compare to the anime show? Would you care to elaborate on that, please?
I already did. It's
Oh,
it's I'll elaborate more. Um, and especially like with there's like this character in the One Piece anime that I describe if I'm gonna describe One Piece the live action adaptation to the manga and anime. It's like that Olivia Captain Olivia, you know, who like had that timid kid who was in prison in the first episode, that first female captain who was more obese in the manga and anime,
oh,
and
oh
then
yeah,
later
yeah.
in the anime she trimmed down because she ate a gum gum fruit and it made her super sexy.
Right.
That's what I think of the One Piece live action adaptation, not in quality wise, but in trimmed down because the fat on it 20 seasons long, I can't do that, honestly. I can't for the love of God. I'm not gonna go through that, no.
You
But
did. You watched the
I
anime, right?
Yes, I did. I watched pretty much the first season, East Blue. Pretty much was in the Netflix. It
All
was
right.
44 episodes worth. Like I said, fact. 44 episodes to it. And it got it down to Game of Thrones long, or Ahsoka long, in 8 episodes. And they managed to still chop the fat because there's still a lot of annoying filler in the anime. So to Castlevania, bounce back to Castlevania Nocturne, Twilightvania. Ugh, I hate you how you make me think it's Castlevania, yet you abuse me. Twilightvania.
Oh my days.
And it is like I played like a bit of Sympathy of the Night, and I can't stand the Metroidvania like formula, so I didn't make it that long. And
Uh,
I loved the the first series. Like I mean the the 2 seasons, the first 2 seasons were great. Honestly, I don't care what anyone. Still, in my opinion, the 3 and 4, I still have some heart on a bit aspects of it, but what like I knew when they kill off Death. Where could you go from there? A vampire messiah. Oh, a vampire messiah based on a serial killer becomes a vampire messiah and wants to block out the sun and do a whole eclipse style, like Griffith. Griffith would kick their asses if that, yeah, it actually came from that eclipse.
gosh.
And I I my by the third episode, were you watching the same show as the original? Because this feels like a completely different entity. That this doesn't feel like Castlevania. This feels like a bunch of a like a Twilight Zone level of awful a Twilight. Get it?
Yeah.
Where we're giving this one character who's been changed, and our entire episode is that character, and basically leaving Richter Belmont, who's supposed to be the main character, and his
That's
fellow
pretty much the
trio.
main
It was
character.
dedicated to her. The third episode was only dedicated to her.
And
And also
in
that sim for her, who just came in as supporting characters, and who died in the second episode, and it was her fault. She felt guilty. But I will say that guy, his voice is I definitely, the music of the series is
mm,
good. It's
yeah,
fantastic. At least the art
the
style
visuals.
is good visuals. Even though we've seen some animation, and yeah, it makes Sailor Moon how repetitive that it makes that them blush, like how
Be
repetitive
to
it
be
can
more
be.
specific, the show looks like, at least graphic-wise, like something out of Violet Evergarden, but sometimes with the animation itself, like sure you'll get the occasional like smooth quick fight scene. I mean, people can talk about like the jarring camera and stuff like that, but it's really buttery smooth at times. But other times there'll be some obviously lesser efforts into some other scenes, such as the way characters run or the way the face parts are not quite in the right proportions at times, and you just don't really feel that much the gravity that you'd get from the action scenes. So it's a bit unequal.
And there's a reason why we don't talk about Richter Belmont so far, because he's barely an entity in this show, and when he is crying about the guy who killed his mother. That's the only thing that really is. If you want a guy with a bandana fighting against vampires, go watch Battle Tendency. Go watch Joseph Joestar kicking the hell out of cars in the Pillarman, which we're watching right now. So yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I think Netflix does at least
That's more Castlevania than this.
Yeah, at least Netflix does have a good fighting vampire show, and it's called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
They didn't exactly made that. They just had the rights to that. Just had the rights.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
I mean, what's
So-
the recent iteration of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Netflix exclusive? Or...
It's Stone Ocean. No, it's Stone Ocean.
Right.
You don't know that. Okay, so back to Castlevania. And there's also this girl who also is just like this, like, seriously, she's a nut for the revolution. I mean, if she actually existed in French Revolution era, which from Assassin's Creed Unity, I've played the game. Arno is a way better charismatic protagonist than Richter ever will be. And if she was in that same environment doing those chants, they would not take her seriously, and she'd probably die in a gutter. Exactly. It's like from that Simpsons episode. If you live in a country in this world, you started a long time ago. And they say about, and that whole like bitch that changed character who's basically like Amber Bennett from Invincible, she says you know nothing of the world to them. Well, they constantly like romanticize the French Revolution, even though so many people died at the hands of a mob.
The thing is, with characters like the spoiled blonde brat, is that if you take a look at any of her deluxe surroundings, you have to think, lady, you wouldn't even be talking right now if you didn't have the comforts that you have.
I mean, I love when she says they're going to love you. I love how pretentious, how fucking blood-boiling, blood-flaming, fuming that gets me, of how patronized I'm being, and that how this
third episode is pretty much dedicated to this one character's backstory. That doesn't sound bad enough itself, but it's dedicated to, pandering to, oh, the slavery happened, oh, white guilt. And then despite having an entire episode dedicated to this one character's backstory, they keep bringing it up again throughout the show.
Seriously, I wanted, and the worst is saved for the last. Alucard shows up out of the fucking blue, and basically lives on a cliffhanger for season 2. We're just gonna get more. You're key-tangling us. I mean, imagine if this was like Batman Beyond, with like Richter Belmont being like Terry McGinnis's Batman, and Alucard being like the Kal-El, like he's slightly older yet he's still immortal, so he doesn't age that much, being like a mentor to him. Hell, there was like this stupid Jake Skywalker-esque character who was kind of a mentor who showed up out of nowhere, and it was a Belmont too, for that matter. Gave this Schopenhauer life is meaningless shit, all just to make the moment bad. And then that girl, who we will not mention, she gets this all uplifting moment from Force Ghost African shamans. Like, what? I mean, back to Alucard. You could have written this whole show about Richter Belmont being mentored by Alucard. Or hell, that other Belmont who's definitely from the games.
That would have made for a better sense of continuity.
Yeah, it would help, like, sequel. It would make sense as a sequel since we established from the first Castlevania that Trevor and Sypha like each other and they're gonna get together and have the next generation. And
You know
then
what?
Rick, and since Alucard would be with them, he would love to accompany all the generations. And maybe he could have had some conflict with it. Maybe something could have happened in the past. But don't leave us on a cliffhanger like that.
You know, I think there's been rumors and plans that the Nocturne team are trying to make a season 2. But if that's the case, and if it's gonna involve
Yes,
Alucard,
it's confirmed. It's confirmed. It's confirmed.
right. Okay, right. So likely Alucard is gonna be some kind of mentor towards Richter Belmont. Whatever plot
Even though
idea.
that's in episode 1.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like, why
No,
couldn't you
maybe
just
his
start from
mother would have
there?
been alive.
Season 1 was a waste of time. Why couldn't you just start from where you leave season 1 off?
All right, let's get that bad taste out of our mouth and get to the back to the good one. All right, One Piece season 1. From how you do a bad adaptation to how you do a good adaptation. From a show that does the crime of the century of making you hate the original series of and thinking was it ever good to begin with and actually have good conviction for that. One Piece does not only makes you like the show, it actually makes you want to love the entire anime medium. It makes you actually want to get into that.
Oh,
And
nice.
also, it doesn't. It of course there's still cultural differences and of course writing differences because after all, I did rewatch the most of One Piece from the special episode where they did like they cut the fat and they did like what in this series did, but they did it they made it into a movie. They made it like into this like it's on Netflix and
All right.
they cut out the fat in the anime and they just jumbled up into episodes focusing on the characters, which basically this Netflix series is like. But with this, it's clearly different, like writing and different. It's you can tell day and night from that. Some things are more explained in the anime better. Some are at least better written in live action. Like some
Ah.
there's also the whole subplot about the admiral that wasn't even revealed in that season yet about and the vice admiral being Luffy's grandfather. That's
Oh.
in the show.
And
That's just not revealed yet. That's not and that whole subplot about Luffy's friend, I forgot his name, the timid boy, but whatever. Oh, I think Kabi, I think, yeah.
Bobby.
Him going through this arc, and also him kind of having this friendship with that guy who was the son of that axe guy. That wasn't at all in the anime. That's a complete creation of the show and a
Oh, really?
complete liberty of the show. That's that's all and it's done well. It's done extremely well. That's where in the anime they just basically left Kobe and that guy was just a one note dumb stereotypical villain with no nuance to him at all. And they just left them off and they never went back to him. But in this show, they made that entire subplot and they actually that shows good writing. That shows that they are competent, and especially in this day and age where stuff One Piece the original anime they emphasize, especially in this day and age where it's such a rarity to see, like we said, that girl saying girls can be boys but no woman can be man. You'll grow stronger, you'll grow taller, your arms will grow longer, but I will never be able to match you. And she died she died, but she did in the anime. And it was left that her sword was left to him, and he took up on that. And also, that whole plot about the cat pirates trying to take her out, take that girl, that sickly girl out. That was done a lot differently in the anime. That was done. It was actually better explained. It was they they had this whole he wasn't the last survivor. He actually had his crew. That that Edward Scissorhands pirate.
Right.
He actually still had his crew. He had his crew, and he was planning to wait long game for her to come of age, and also to hypnotize her into signing the deed to him. So why didn't you put that? I'm gonna critique it. Why didn't you at least put the hypnotism, like not just poison? Why not just like put hypnotism like in the soup so you could convince her to sign the deed to him instead of trying to just straight up kill her? Because was gonna hypnotize her, and then he was gonna in the anime he was gonna hypnotize her, and then he was gonna kill the entire village. And Usopp admittedly was better, had better character, even though he was okay. He was a bit okay. There's actually this whole video about how they did Usopp dirty. He did have, and also Luffy. He is a lot different from his counterpart. He's more like what I the best parts I like about Aang in this, but in the anime, he is a loudmouth. He is not as kind and tolerant as Luffy's. More like a bit even like when Usopp in the anime asked to join their crew, it wasn't Luffy who asked him to join the crew. It was Usopp who asked, and Luffy, Nami, and Zoro all declined him straight out of the bat. He didn't even have a chance.
That's interesting. I suppose maybe it could be implied that the butler was trying to hypnotize as well as poison the girl after at the same time, but that's never really
Yeah, but
explained,
I don't
guess.
think that wasn't at all mentioned. That wasn't mentioned.
No,
at
not
all.
mentioned. Right, and I wouldn't have known otherwise. Gosh, it's like haunting
Exactly.
in Venice all over again. Wink, wink.
Mhm.
Right. So as a newcomer, getting introduced to these characters, and you're telling me they're quite different from to their counterparts, and fairly
And
interesting.
Nami, may I interrupt? Nami is a bit more. You could it from a certain point of view, one dimensional in the anime. She's very greedy. She's greedy, and she actually, unlike her counterpart in live action, she actually kind of likes stealing. And the whole revolution with Arlong, that was completely the whole slavery thing. That was a fabric. That was a liberty again. A liberty in the live action. It kind of tell because of the American lens. Arlong was just this boss villain in the anime. He wasn't like this revolution, and even better, guess who the sister of Nami, who they're not related, even in the anime, they definitely get that right. And see, and back to Castlevania Nocturne about the whole Twilight Nocturne, the whole race swapping. I'm fine with it here because this show earned it. This show and guess what? Even in the anime, they're not sisters, real sisters. They're not real sisters as they're not here. But Nami's sister, she knew about the secret from the start in the anime, but she didn't even tell it in the live action. They just wanted to add more stakes, I guess. It's more like so, but in the anime, she knew from the start, and that she knew that she was going to get the million berry to pay off the free to town, and it's in Zoro's character. It's and also Sanji. They're so far probably closest to their anime counterparts compared to the rest.
I think the reason why people were more welcoming to the race swap of Nami's sister compared to the race swap of Annette is, firstly, the Nocturne team made such a big deal out of it, and
I know.
secondly, I think it's primarily from a writing perspective. Annette, they changed the character from the source material to such an extent that it was barely recognizable anymore. But with the other character in One Piece, Nami's sister, it was still the same character. Just the person playing her just
Like I
happens.
said, they're not
Yeah,
even sisters. They're not even really sisters.
adopted
They're
sisters.
not
Right.
blood related. They're not blood related. They're all adopted and taken in by the red haired
Yeah.
name,
Right.
who
Right.
who used to be a Marine. And I
Right.
will say back to Sanji, one thing that has not been altered from the anime whatsoever is Sanji's backstory. It was exactly the same. It was because that story was one of the best backstories that Oda written, and they could not, for the life of them, but in the anime, it was more employed. I mean, you could technically get that from the live action, but they specifically said they were washed up. The waves are so high, they washed up on that big like rock that
That must have
you.
hurt.
Yeah, no, I mean no, the waves are so huge, like there were
Right.
typhoons, so
Right.
it
Right.
could have like washed them on the shore like that, like
Right.
because
Right.
they're
Yeah.
so huge.
Right.
But to survive that is a stretch of the imagination, but that's fine. Okay.
Right. I guess it's just the ship must have come along later on, but it just showcases the dad's willingness to survive and look out for it. Yeah, that's another thing that One Piece provides that a lot of modern entertainment doesn't have these days. It actually has a lot of positive role models, specifically positive
Three!
father,
Three!
positive father role models, which is unheard of in today's climate.
Oh. And I heard definitely Neurotic that he compared it. Neurotic! The guy who was so pessimistic about modern American culture said it's one of the best shows of 2023.
Well done,
And
trying.
compared it to like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Battlestar Galactica. And you know, the whole cultural appropriation, this is its own thing, and it knows it. It's not the anime. It's not the manga, even the manga. It is its own thing. It's its own, like, different beast. And that's kudos to that, you know?
Mm, it clearly
Now back
has
to something. Let's get back to not Twilight Mania.
Twlightvania, Nocturne, not Castlevania.
Yes. God, I really just wish it was. I wish just leave it with Death. Death was a big villain. Hell, he was. I definitely done my research. We've done research that he had a part to play with Richter Belmont, but they got rid of him in season 4. They got rid of Dracula because he would have wanted died with his wife. So he's not going to be a big bad soon. So that's why they had to come up with these vampires who could walk in the day, and also that discount Frollo and that discount
Oh no,
like
this idiot priest makes Frollo look like a hero in comparison. He's that dumb.
well, he lacks the ambition. He lacks the prize. He lacks like so yeah, we were talking about the heroes, I guess we're segueing to the villains and we're talking more yeah. So I really don't also about the whole like that simp guy who was for that, Amber Bennett. He came back as a night creature and he still retained his humanity through song.
What?
Okay. Okay. Through song. Okay, you're right. Like so
Right.
I know it was established through that episode 3 that he had magical powers or something. I don't know how he got those powers to begin with. That he could sense the
Writers.
auras of the entire audience. What?
He got it from the
What?
writers.
Yeah. He could sense the aura of everyone in the audience. And guess what? I'm just going to call her 18th century Amber Bennett. Hers is pink. Pink. Her soul was pink. Her favorite. Yeah, and his was green, but we still don't. I mean, I really don't. I don't think it was ever established how he got those powers, and also the power system in this is so like it's not
Addictive.
established. There's no difference between taught based power, like there's soft magic, and there's like tough magic, like hard magic powers. Like we have no difference. It's completely blurred. Like I
Oh,
guess with
absolutely.
like Richter and his mother, you could say that they were taught since their ancestors were speakers, like with Sypha. You can say that they passed that on. But
Yeah, it
it
had
kind
to have
of
been
implies
taught.
it's more like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where it can be more innate, or like like or like the Force. It's more sensitive to it,
Right.
Like
Given the fact
so
that they are
it's
Given the fact that they are
It's
like witches and sorcerers, it needs to have been taught. Like, there's no way that
yeah.
it could have been inbred.
So, and especially with back to that guy singing, it feels innate. It cannot be taught. This does not feel like something can be taught. This, and especially, don't forget to the whole African god shit that 18th century Amber Bennett is basically like a demigod. They imply that everyone's inherited from gods. And you know what's funnier? That would have to apply to the white gods too, not just the black gods. That would have to apply to the Greek gods, the Roman gods, hell, probably the Mesopotamian gods.
There. Oh my days, where do I even begin with how stupid this world building is? I think I'm very thankful that you brought up the power system because there is this really questionable scene where, as much as much this is going to get quite sensitive, but I'm not going to try to push beliefs on people for this particular session. The fact that this show has such an utter disdain in their mockery for Christianity, and then at one point the 18th century Annette, she has the sorcerer's powers from like the Egyptian goddess, and then at one point she calls on the name of Christ to take down a vampire, even though she continues being a sorceress anyway. And as a man who's
Even
actually
though
read the
may I interrupt you? Even though in the original series that it had that prejudice to a limit, at least an
yeah,
extent, and it was it was probably at its worst with that whole like undead priest at Carmilla that they brought that before Adventure. Carmilla said, "Bless this river, Bishop," and he was able to do that while being a demon from hell. And but yeah, he was able to completely like combine with heaven and hell powers to dam the river, I guess.
that's
The
not how it
Sentinel Flame.
works.
I know, but at least in the first season, they said Trevor himself asked to find a priest and asked them to get holy water. So there was still a limit to how prejudiced they were to be Christianity because they were willing to have priests, even though they were like horrible, like mob written priests in the show. There were still some good ones, or portrayed as good, that helped actually fight back against the demons to help the village.
Right, yeah. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So the fact that the sorceress randomly calls on the name of Christ to take down a vampire, that's not how it works. And it really just shows their lack of understanding of how the Christian worldview works. In the Book of Acts, there's this story about a sorcerer named Simon who's doing
You're
dark
getting
arts and
carried
stuff.
away. You're getting carried away. You're getting
No,
carried
no, no.
away.
Hold on. This actually has a point. Actually, I'll explain why. So Simon the sorcerer has these dark arts, and then he's noticing the apostle Paul and disciples casting out demons in the name of Christ, and then Simon the sorcerer says, "Ah, well, if they can do it, so can I." So when he tries to do it, the demon possessed man goes, "Yeah, I know Jesus, but do you?" And then he reverts to pounding the snot out of Simon. So the moral of the story is, just because you know about him doesn't mean Jesus is morally obligated to obey. You gotta know Jesus personally in order for the miracle
I'm
to
not
work.
stopping you there. I'm just making sure to the audience that we're not
Yeah,
pushing
yeah,
back
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Christian
But
propaganda.
the point I'm
Here's the
trying to
thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. What we can all agree with Christian, even though if you are an atheist, you can agree that the Christian myths are fantastic and are
yeah.
amazing. Like Prince of Egypt, I don't want to get like off. Like Veggie Tales, Prince of Egypt, they definitely have that positive myths of like of fantastical. But
Yeah.
I think we're getting a little bit off track, and
I was
I'm
getting
not.
round to it. I was getting round to it. The point is, like, they clearly don't understand that. Like, you can't be like the sorcerer and also call in the name of Christ to do that. That's not how it works. That's the point I was trying to give. The Bible says it, and since the people running the show clearly ignored it, it means they're ignorant of the very religion they're trying to critique. That's what I was trying
Yeah,
to say.
it's
And not only are
at
they
least call on the like Egyptian gods, like at least like Ra, like the sun god, or hell, the Aztec gods, or
Speaking
like
of Aztecs, they also get history wrong. There's one character who says that he was an Aztec and his people were oppressed, his people were innocent. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, even in Back to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, they explicitly said that the Aztecs were fucked up. They explicitly had, and even like they were like these pillar men who were like gods to them, who were like the first vampires. So
Right.
they were, and also they had this mask where they had blood sacrifice and turned people into vampires. That's how, and that's had more history better than this.
There was also, you got to keep in mind, there was also the Road to El Dorado, which portrayed the Aztec culture more accurately. I can name, I
And
can
but
list.
given that it's the road that's El Dorado, since that's a myth, or like they can
Right,
get away with making like the conquistadors as inhumanly evil as possible because this is still a myth. It's not based off of real Aztec culture. It's not
right.
based on
So in which case,
Aztec Empire. Right.
a better example I can think of is a children's historical comedy show called Horrible Histories, which has an entire song sequence dedicated to the Aztec priests' particular fondness for human sacrifice. Not to
Yeah.
mention, I looked up an
All right.
article saying, yeah,
Let's get back to One Piece.
yeah.
Let's end its world building. So it's near. I don't think I. I don't think in the maybe I don't. Maybe it wasn't showed in like the episode, like the recap, that special. But I don't remember like the sea snails being like used as telephones. I don't remember. Maybe commenting below remind me, or I'll just look it up. But also like there there's like these like seagulls that are like messengers.
They have hats.
Sometimes they maybe can be made up by the show, or it may be really good from manga. And like also there's this like one scene where like Shanks, it's ripped straight. This one is straight from the anime. Like Shanks like was saving young Luffy while facing against a giant 100 200-foot eel, and he's like a Pokemon. He used intimidation against him with his eye, and then the eel ran off, and Shanks got his arm off, and that was that was perfect. That was like that was exactly how it was in the anime and manga. So, and also to the world building with, of course, the East Blue and the Grand Line. And my God, if you I know I haven't seen I only gotten pretty much to this. I got a little pass like in the Netflix series, but a little. But I know that the world of One Piece is bloated. So, and especially with the power system in that show, which I've seen like how crazy this animation can get, and how good luck to you guys trying to animate that. You've done it pretty good at the end with like Luffy like facing against Arlong in that anime style fight where he had like those 1,000 like arms against him and then slammed him into like the palace. That was pretty good. But can you do like a guy like cutting an entire island in half? I know you also done with that Hawkeye guy. You had him basically destroy an entire ship and also slice bullets in half. And which also in that was different with also that whole like scene and with he was facing against those pirates. Well, those pirates weren't supposed to be dead or like defeated by him yet. They're actually facing Luffy at the restaurant in the anime.
Right, right. There's, I think people have gotten really invested in this power system that is set up, and there's also these devil fruits that, from what I've researched, are the amalgamations of this weird form of imaginary evolution where they come from human desire, but even then, the authors left it a mystery as to where they come from, how they
You
came to
don't need
be.
to imply the Christian in this. You don't. Just
No, no, no.
don't get carried.
This is its own crazy world building.
I know, good, good. And that's the benefit. We don't have to talk about this shit with One Piece. We don't. We don't. Neither the live action
I wasn't bringing it
nor
up. I
the
was just
anime manga.
mentioning it in its own
Like,
context.
except there is that Hawkeye did have this crucifix like thing, but actually turned out to be this mini sword, actually.
More of
Which
a letter
crucifix
opener
can
than a sword, really.
uh, and so about the world building, yeah.
Right. So basically, what I was trying to say is that the origins of these fruits are still unknown, but it seems to be this weird amalgamation of human desire as well as some implied science of like these hyper nutrients that can affect your body in several ways. But it comes at a cost, which is this is the part that can invest people into the show because I've noticed people are really fond of stories where for people who have these particular strengths, they can also have these particular setbacks, like the kryptonite for Superman or some kind of
And they can be extremely annoyed by it. They can be extremely annoyed by it.
yeah, depending on how it's written, I suppose. I mean, what makes one
Like,
compelling, right?
let's get to the villains more. Like, so with Buggy basically being Joker on the high seas, Buggy, clown, that clown pirate. I'll call him clownfish pirate. Like but like I said, with the gum fruit, he can slice himself. He can slice him in half, and he can just like he's like Hydra. He'll grow back. Like it won't grow back. He'll just like come back. Like you can put it back
Kind
on.
of
And
magnetism
with
or something.
Arlong, he's not really. He doesn't have a gum fruit. He's just more a born. He's not like Davy Jones, where he's like cursed to be fish pirate. He's more just a born bred fish pirate. He's like probably more authentic than Davy Jones. If they ever got in a fight, he would absolutely despise, especially the live action, despise Davy Jones.
Ah,
Um,
why would he? Why would he despise
because
Davy
remember,
Jones?
he has that fish pirate prejudice against like, which definitely back to the whole slavery thing about Castlevania and
Oh yeah.
Twilightvania Nocturne. This does a better like interpretation of how slavery can go overboard and get innocent people killed in the way, and definitely can be portrayed as morally wrong with the Arlong pirates, especially them attacking the village in the third episode of Castlevania, Twilightvania Nocturne. That the good guys are the one who attacks the village, even though they don't imply that they kill women and children, but they have to. That there had to be women and children. Hell, even in One Piece, that they didn't really kill the villagers. They were more just trying to break their spirits, really. Because if you've seen them, they weren't really killed. They were just more. Their houses was destroyed. It was just more like to force them into submission, even more like to show their teeth and grit. Which
Right.
it's definitely different in the anime, where actually it wasn't like with Luffy, I mean, no, it wasn't with Nami who like failed. It wasn't with like the whole like Marines like taking her money and Arlong betraying her. That did happen in the anime, but it wasn't her crying over that. It was her in the anime crying over that the villagers were going to fight and die and kill themselves, all just to get back against Arlong and take back their land. And but I will say that that scene with Nami and Luffy, that where not Luffy puts the hat on Nami, it was pitch perfect in like adaptation, like well done. Except I will say that I guess this is for lighting purposes or like just to make it more dramatic when they go in the village. It is in live action at night, but in the anime it was in day, like say day to night. But it is remarkable about after what Luffy, like a whole scene with like Luffy saying, "I will help you." That was in the anime, and then afterwards he called upon the men to join up. That happened exactly in the anime too.
Gosh. This goes to
Yeah.
show the power of a creative adaptation done right, and going back to the power system, I think it makes people care for the characters even more because given the fact that they've announced that they've got a new season coming up, they've managed to make these characters very investing and giving them very specific rules, very specific strengths, but also very specific weaknesses. What I mentioned about the devil fruits earlier plays a crucial part in the creator's desire for good character writing. So Luffy has eaten a gum fruit, which gives him super stretchy powers, but all the devil fruit users have this one big weakness because the devil fruits are apparently this unnaturally sourced power. This nature represented by the sea rejects that power, which is why Luffy and all the other devil fruit users can't swim in salt water. So that adds some stakes. And then you've got some really skilled sword fighters like Zoro, who you just look at his really well choreographed sword fight scenes, and you think, oh gosh, he could take down anybody any day, like Clint Eastwood style, if he had swords. But then
Well, it was
you come to
Hawkeye who took him down like he was nothing.
yeah, and not to mention he had that best friend. I like a side note. I like how his best friend and him don't degrade each other. They're just stating basic facts about nature, which is so refreshing. Basically,
And also because, especially with what they're doing, which is also a bit more extended in the anime, not to a disgusting degree, but it's just more extended in the live action. Rather, it was more briefly touched upon in the anime, and also with the whole Hawkeye versus Zoro, that was all stripped straight from the manga onto live action, all
holy cow!
straight from the comic. Like, I mean, it
Wow.
wasn't as over the top with like you would see in anime, but it was like he did stab him in with that little sword in the anime manga, and he also took him down with that giant thing,
Right.
that
Yeah, and
giant sword.
you look at scenes like that and you think, well, if Zoro was this awesome, but then there's all these other implied characters who are even better at sword fighting, it gives stakes for the stories as well as a setup. Like, okay, these characters have potential, but they need time to grow. So that's what makes people investing compared to so many other characters we see nowadays, particularly those who are just female inserts
Twilight
who are
Nocturne, Twilightvania
well, yeah,
Nocturne. Yep.
especially Twilightvania, where they don't need stakes, they don't need training, they don't need to be relatable, whether they
Hell, in
achieve
the
that or not.
first episode, all we saw was them cheering about their stupid revolution, and then them kicking ass right afterwards. I mean, in the first episode of the Netflix series for One Piece, like it's only just like most of it from the beginning. After all, give it credit where credit's due. Fairness, that One Piece is longer than like Castlevania Nocturne, so I give it that. But even still, they took time for like Luffy like to take out the like the Olivia pirate woman.
Right. Aye. A good way to set up the powers and set up what his potential is, and how their personalities play into that sort of thing. Aye. Um,
And I'm bad with Kobe's character. Like he was a more annoying like side character, like very like over the top. And then they definitely toned it down a lot and made him a bit more sophisticated but timid, but has his good wits and like but with that whole syrup village thing where like Kobe went to like Usopp, that never happened. Never happened. Never happened in the anime manga. Never happened.
oh,
And
that's
one thing I will say again about the Hawkeye thing, also, the whole sword between the chests and that whole having the Zoro having to heal, that didn't happen in the anime manga either.
oh. So what did happen?
Well, he was actually taken down by this tiny sword instead of the longer one.
Oh, right.
I think they did heal, but I don't think it was by that big one. And
Right.
I think that they might have healed him. Actually, I kind of got a little caught up with. I kind of like got a little caught up. I
I
don't remember that
assume
much.
that right. I assume in the anime version, the letter opener sword must have stabbed some kind of nerve for the sake of
No,
melodramatic purposes or something.
it was stabbed right in his heart, like onto the skin, like near his heart. It's
Oh
only
gosh.
into the skin. Like on near to the tip to this heart, nearly
Right.
to it. It didn't really stab into the heart. It like stabbed like right next where it would be like right comfortable, but without like tearing a hole right like it.
Right. Okay.
These
Just
are so
okay.
tiny. It's so tiny that it'll go into his skin, like right
Right.
where the heart
Okay.
is, as thick
Right.
as the skin, like where the skin.
Right. I guess
Hell,
that makes
actually, so tiny that it wouldn't even get through the skeleton. It wouldn't get through the skeleton part. It wouldn't get through the skin.
all right.
Actually, it would go right through the rib cage. It would go right a little bit to the rib cage a bit,
All right. Okay.
and just a little like yeah, like the more you know. Okay,
Thank you.
so and I want a little, even though this is mostly Twilightvania Nocturne, I finally got the hang of it, and One Piece. one mention to another shitty show that we did a riff-raff on, Ahsoka and One Piece. My God, like from one animated show to a live action adaptation, you really screwed the pooch. And you know what's the bigger irony? That the creator of One Piece was the one who saved it. The creator of Ahsoka was the one who damned it.
So weird. How can these shows have so many similarities and yet contrast so much?
I know. That's all I'm gonna say about Ahsoka. And also one more thing. That okay, Dave Filoni is just gave up. I'm not saying he necessarily intentionally damned it, but I will say that I believe Zoro is a green-haired person more than that kid who's the son of Kanan Jarrus, or Caleb Dune. I believe
Right.
that he's more green-haired than him. All right, and
The thing
well,
is,
here's final thoughts. Final thoughts about One Piece and Twilight Nocturne, which hmm, so
Twilightvania Nocturne.
overall, like these shows are cultural appropriation from a video game to a Netflix adaptation, and from an anime manga to a Netflix adaptation. What one has definitely is animation versus live action. Of course, there's differences and there's different merits to each other, but it's of course all about the writing at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
it's about the writing that, especially has been put in the Nocturne, that makes it eerie. It makes it like it just makes it really pessimistic. Like and I get it that the whole pessimistic like, but that doesn't change the fact the sun's going to explode, and and all this is for nothing. That really that nihilistic worldview that so many people have. And instead of but that One Piece is just such a ray of sunshine on that bleakness.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That so many shows, for all their virtue signaling, virtue pandling, they're ironically nihilistic and like
Nihilism, Hellenic pessimism, it's Schopenhauerism.
that must be such a toxic relationship to, on the one hand, say everything is meaningless, but at the same time, trying to force everyone into buy into your sense of so-called meaning. Like, what?
One Piece is like, fuck that, I'm gonna give you a good time.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, One Piece, for giving us actual entertainment for once.
Yeah, that and Shanks with at the end with like Luffy becoming a pirate and him getting a bounty. It's a lot like in the Pirates Band of Misfits. It's not. Callum thought that was stupid at first. That he's so excited to be wanted.
No.
Remember, it's
I
like
didn't. I didn't.
pirates are rock stars.
Well,
Like
I mean,
he's
I didn't find that necessarily stupid in terms of the world building.
he's
I
not
just
stupid. He laughed at it. He scoffed at it. He
yeah.
like
I just laughed at the idea that yes, I'm a wanted criminal. I'm going to be handed
uh,
down. Yes.
and well, even the show that they pointed out how dumb that
Yeah.
is to ignore that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't
But
ignore
it
this.
still is that rock star flair that even the pirates, probably back in real pirates, still would pride themselves on their wantedness. Get it? It's still wanted after all. It's still and 30 million berry he's that wanted for that. Yeah, that anyone that a kid like him starting out, it's also like YouTube or anything, just anything get popular. And you even there is that little like looming, like there's a bit like that whole that the world isn't fair, but it's not pessimistic like all these shows. It has some respect to it, like especially with the Marines. I mean, compare that to like the aristocrats who are just plain up evil, and you can't sympathize with them. And Twilightvania Nocturne. But in this, with the Marines, you can get their point, even if it's not you don't know all of them. At least from the Vice Admiral, you get their drift. You get like that we are all that stands between anarchy and order, order and anarchy. You know.
Right.
It's like from Top Gun Maverick. It's like amazing from going from that to this.
Yeah.
And also
and-
Puss in Boots' Last Wish.
Oh yeah, there really does seem to be creative revolution at that, and there's a reason why
The
they're
revolution!
Yes.
It's not by socialism. It's like how Twlightvania Nocturne betrays it.
Indeed.
Like
There's-
pessimistic socialism. Pessimistic.
yeah,
Cynical, corporate fucking shit.
yeah, we are sick and tired of this pessimistic form of socialism, but I think it's there seems to be a serious change in the tide, which I'm so happy about because it's going to make way for a new wave of creative storytellers. There's some people who genuinely just want to tell a good story and just want to appease to the
Unless
fans.
this is a fluke. Unless this is a fluke and they're gonna screw it up the second season. Which hopefully, from the popularity of the show, it won't.
Well,
Continue.
I mean, as you pointed out earlier, it's it more or less started with Top Gun Maverick, arguably, but there's been other successes like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the Super Mario Brothers movie, arguably the Barbenheimer phenomena, which implies that people have had enough of either the pessimistic socialism and or media that deceives you into thinking it's one thing, only to subvert expectations for another thing.
Bait and switch.
Yeah, bait and switch. That's another thing that Twlightvania did.
Ryan Johnson shit.
Yeah, I mean, even with Barbie, even though say what you want about Barbie, but at least I think the reason why that was successful was because even though it did have some deceptive marketing, at least for the most part, it had a specific audience, and that specific audience latched onto it. But with most of the other media, they were aiming for other audiences that were expecting something else.
And with Oppenheimer, it's all just white men most of the time doing stuff. And we're getting a little off track. We should definitely end this with a little last words.
There is one other thing I'd like to mention before we do so. There's something else that's come up lately that I might as well mention. I think this could seriously turn the tide. South Park lately is going to make some kind of unique special called the Panderverse, where they're directly mocking the woke crowd. I kid you not. They're like replacing the four main kids with tough, strong women. Like Cartman.
Alright, let's end it off with Twilightvania Nocturne and One Piece.
But
right.
long story
so
short,
overall, Twilightvania Nocturne can rot in hell, along with and you can punch Schopenhauer in the face, and Nietzsche would be the one doing it, and punch from the innocent joy that is from One Piece. Hell, actually, Luffy could just go punch like the entire Twilightvania Nocturne and beat it like he did with Arlong. That's some last words.
Yeah, someone's gonna make an edit of just the poster of Nocturne and then have Luffy just beat the snot out of it. Just beat it fair and
Alright,
square.
I think that was our last thoughts, and we really hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and we will see you later. Peace out, guys.
Bye!